now live on YouTube. Okay, perfect.
So, good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural meeting of the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority. Before we commence the meeting, I just want to go through some housekeeping. You will have received an email today from Paul Hanson with instructions on processes and protocols. Can everybody ensure that your own volume, speaker volume, is turned up as high as possible so that you can hear proceedings? Votes will be taken this evening electronically. Paul will send you a pop-up box onto your screen to tick the box yes, no, or abstain when a vote is required. You've also received instructions on raising your electronic hand. Please don't worry if you have raised your hand, we will get to you, but there are a lot of people on the call, so there will be a long list of people wanting to speak, so you will need to wait your turn. Please do not use the reactions hand on your screen, only use the electronic hand to raise the blue hand. The chat function has been switched off, so please do not use this either, as we will not pick up this chat during the meeting. In the room, we have 4 elected members. We have the chair-elect, Councillor Chris Miller, Councillor Pinder Chahan, Jonathan Nunn, and Councillor Ian McCord, who will take part in the meeting from the room. And now I'd like to move on to the business of the meeting, and it's a great pleasure to introduce our High Sheriff for Northamptonshire, Mr. Paul Parsons, who has been invited to open this historic meeting for West Northamptonshire. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and what a real pleasure to be here in Angel Square for the first meeting of the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority. An historic day in terms of local government in our county, a day full of opportunity. At first blush, you may find it surprising that it's the High Sheriff who is opening these proceedings. After all, in this distinguished company of elected representatives, the High Sheriff's democratic credentials do not bear particularly close scrutiny. However, the ties of the office of High Sheriff to the historic county or shire are as old as the existence of the shire itself. And in the earliest days, the shire's administration was very much part of the sheriff's duties. The office of High Sheriff is the oldest secular office after the Crown. It's a royal appointment over 1,000 years old, dating back to late Anglo-Saxon times, when the shires were first formed and when they were governed by the sheriff. In those days, the sheriff was the king's representative at the folk or shire moot. Each shire held these regular meetings when cases were heard and local matters discussed. The shire moot was attended by the local lords and bishops, as well as by the sheriff, but most importantly also by 4 representatives from each village in the shire. After the Norman conquest, the shire moot became known as the county court, and arguably it introduced the idea of representative government at the local level. At that point, any possible analogy with the present must end, since we're told that in Anglo-Saxon times, my predecessors as shire reeve were entitled to receive a share of the profits of administration. The very concept that local administration might result in profit would surely bring a smile to the face of any director of finance in today's world, though perhaps not its distribution to the High Sheriff. For those concerned that I still have a lot of ground to cover between Anglo-Saxon times and the present day, please don't worry. Know that you have a lengthy agenda ahead of you, so I'm now going to fast forward by 900 odd years to the Local Government Act of 1888, which in the following year resulted in the creation of Northamptonshire County Council. The fundamental structure of that act remained in place until the 1972 Local Government Act, which came into effect a few years later. I started by describing today as an historic day. The word can be overused, but it really is just that, since with the enactment this February of the Northamptonshire Structural Changes Order, will be only the second time since the late 19th century that local government in this county has seen significant alteration. Two structural changes in over 130 years represents in many ways remarkable continuity, something which, at best, allows the long view to be taken. It would be surprising if there were no challenges in the years ahead, but I have no doubt that if there are, they will be overcome. I'm even surer that the great opportunities offered by the new structures will be deployed for the benefit of those who live, work, and create wealth and employment in our county, so that long before the time local government is next reorganised, the two new unitary authorities in Northamptonshire will be recognised as being models of good governance, efficient, effective, forward-thinking, and compassionate. Without those of you who give of your time and energy as councillors, none of this would be possible. So I should like to take this opportunity of thanking you for your commitment and service to our communities and to our county. I'll sign off by wishing the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority and all of you a fair wind and every good fortune. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of all of us here present and virtually as well, I would like to thank the High Sheriff for his very inspirational words in opening this very historic council meeting. I'm now going to hand over to Paul Hanson to commence the business of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. The first item of business on the agenda is the election of the chair for the forthcoming year. May I receive nominations for the office of chair of the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority for the year 2020-21?
Oh.
Do I have a nomination for the office of chair?
Yes, you do. Councillor Adam Hill speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Hills.
Right, thank you. Right, thank you. It gives me great pleasure in proposing Chris Miller for the position of chairman. What can I say about Chris? Well, firstly, I want to look back to when I got elected to Daventry District Council in May 2002. Chris had been the leader of the council for about 2 to 3 years then. He appointed me in my portfolio role on the district council in July of 2002, a position which I still hold. Therefore, I've been able to work with and observe Chris as a leader until he stood down in 2019. Chris has been an outstanding leader of the district council. He's led the council through some good times, through some difficult times, and has not been afraid to make difficult decisions. Many of the members here tonight will know Chris in his role of chairman of various committees and also his contribution whilst on many outside bodies, which during that time he supported and promoted the district council. And his integrity and wealth of experience will be an asset and stand him in good stead as chairman of the new West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority. And members, I firmly believe that we can all have, and I present that, we can all have every confidence in him. So members, I commend this proposal to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Mary Markham. I'm delighted to second Chris Miller to the position of Chairman of West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority. Chris brings with him a wealth of experience, after 20 very successful years as leader of Daventry District Council. And I have no doubt that the people of Daventry will benefit for many years to come for all his hard work in the district. I have worked alongside Chris on SEMLEP and quite a few other projects, and he always brings something to the table. He is firm but fair and always very professional in his approach. I think Chris would make an excellent chairman of West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority, and I'm happy to second this proposal.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Okay, the vote for this item will now be launched. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote. The vote will appear on your screens now.
Can we put ours in favour?
I've done it online.
Okay.
I've done mine.
Thank you, councillors. I have 79 votes for, 2 against and 21 abstentions. Therefore declare that motion carried, and Councillor Chris Miller, having duly been proposed and seconded to hold the office of Chairman of the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority for the year 2020-21, are you prepared to accept the nomination?
I am.
I therefore declare the motion carried, and I call upon Councillor Chris Miller to take a declaration of acceptance of office of Chair.
Thank you. I, Chris Miller, have been elected to the office of Chairman of the Council from the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority. Hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof, according to the best of my judgment and ability. I do solemnly declare that I will hold the highest standards in the performance of the functions of my office in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct. Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, may I say thank you much indeed for the kind words of Councillor Alan Hills and Mary Markham, who I've known for many years, and obviously been a long-standing member, especially a long-standing leader. I've dealt with all the authorities in the West. That's the County Council. I was the County Council, by the way, for 12 years, going back some time. The Northampton Borough, South Northampton, Daventry. And obviously, I know these characters for a long time, and I've been very proud to represent my district. And whilst we had 1 or 2 battles over planning many years ago, it was always done for the best of interest. And I realise that every council represents their area. And as the new chairman of this body, my intention is to be a very neutral chair in terms of trying to conduct the business of this council in the most effective way I can, be mindful of the rights of members, but also, also be efficient. I'm also aware that I'm sure that we're all aware of the unique challenges presented by the current situation and the requirement to conduct meetings remotely, which is a new challenge for me, certainly. I'd ask all members who wish to speak on any items to make their wishes known for the group where possible, and for this information to be passed to Democratic Services in good time before each meeting. Should you wish to indicate to speak during the meeting, please use the raise hand function if you are able to do so. And as been said already, please do not use the reactions function or raise otherwise, raise your hand unless asked to do so. I'll use my discretion during the meetings to give a reasonable time for debate. I will not allow extended time for debates, as we must be able to manage the business effectively. I'd like to remind members to address the chair and to keep the time in speaking in order to aid the conduct of the business. All members must have their microphones muted unless invited to speak by the chair. Where votes are required, they will be undertaken by means of an electronic poll, which we tested yesterday. Members should take care to ensure they're already ready to vote when required. And of course, only members of the Shadow Authority may vote. The Democratic Services Manager will make an announcement when the vote is about to be taken, and again afterwards when the result is ready. Should a poll produce a particularly close outcome, we may take a roll call afterwards. Should a recorded vote be necessary, this will be conducted by way of a roll call. So just going back a bit, I just want to say thank you again for putting me in this position of chair. And I just want to say I'll do my very best to make sure, as I always have done actually when I chair meetings, to be a fair chairman and to allow people to speak when we can. But also I would like to ask, please do not repeat things too often, or please do not be repetitive without things being said already. So I'm keen that as many members as possible have the opportunity to speak on items as and when required. So I thank members for their cooperation. This will greatly aid the effective transaction of business. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you. Okay, right, sorry about that. Right, the chair, so I'm just starting off here. Right, the next item is the chair to invite group leaders to say a few words following the election of the chairman for up to 3 minutes. Councillor Ian McCord. I've got a timer here, by the way, for everyone so I know exactly how long people are taking to speak.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of brevity, I won't be long. As has already been said, you have been the leader of Daventry Council for 20 years. And we certainly miss your contribution in the leaders' circuit. And more scarily for you, when you stepped aside, I then became the longest standing leader in West Northamptonshire. But what I'm particularly pleased about as chairman of the Shadow Authority, you know how we got here, you know why we got here. We haven't lost that corporate memory. So I wish you every success, and I know that you will be independent and you will ensure that everyone gets their share and everyone gets the chance to speak. So I wish you every success in the incoming year, and we will be calling on your great experience that's been built up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Danielle Stone.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is an unexpected duty for me. Thank you so much. What is the Labour Group looking for from you this year? We're looking for fairness. We're looking for space to be able to contribute. What we're really looking for is the development of collegiality, so that we're a small opposition, but we are robust. We've got lots of ideas to contribute. We didn't want to be here. You will know that we fought very hard for a unitary Northampton, but we are where we are. We understand that it's in everybody's interest to make this a success, and we want to be able to work with you really well to ensure that that happens for all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Councillor Chris Lost.
Thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Stone's comments that it would have been useful to have had a bit of warning that we were going to be invited to speak. But nevertheless, I will also offer my congratulations, and I'll confirm that the Liberal Democrat group very much want to engage with you and your group so that we can all together create the very best possible new council next May. So once again, congratulations.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. And finally, Councillor Julie Davenport.
Hello.
Hello, Councillor Julie Davenport. Yes, hello, Julie.
Hi. No, someone told me that I was meant to speak this evening. Obviously, one of the things that I want is true democracy. And that's what it comes down to with me. As long as we're honest and open and fair with each other, that is all I expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Well, thank you to those 4 leaders. I just want to reaffirm my desire during this year to be an independent chairman who's been around a long time and know how the game works in Northamptonshire, to make sure that we get the business conducted in the right way, but also to make sure that all opposition councillors and also the administration councillors have the opportunity to speak when they can, as long as they don't do a lot of repetitive words. I think it's important that for the public listening, we have a quality debate and we have quality discussions, And I'll be doing my very best to ensure that all of you, no matter, I always said actually every council is important. You're all elected individually, and therefore you have a role to play as an individual councillor to represent the people who elected you. So thank you again to the 4 leaders of the groups, and I'll do my very best to try and fulfil your wishes. Thank you. I'll move on now to item 12. Paul Hanson will read out the apologies which have been received. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Abigail Medina, Councillor Ian Morris, Councillor Brian Oldham, and Councillor Lisa Samiotis.
Are there any more apologies at all? Okay, those 4 apologies have been noted. Thank you, Paul. Declaration of members' interest from members and officers. Are there any declarations of interest from members or officers? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, thank you. Right, the first substantive item tonight is agenda item 5, Constitution and Code of Conduct for the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority. I'm going to ask Councillor Peter Rawlinson to move the proposition. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As chair of the West Northamptonshire Joint Committee Governance Task and Finish Group, I'm very pleased to be able to propose the adoption of the Shadow Council's Constitution and Code of Conduct. The group's work has at times seemed to be based on shifting sands, as events outside Northamptonshire necessitated considering a shadow council of existing councillors, an elected shadow council, and finally back to the shadow council we have today, comprised of the existing representatives of our residents. We have worked over the last year to develop a constitution that conforms to local government legislation as amended by a variety of structural change laws. Our objectives were to make the new council as open, transparent, and accountable as possible, and at the same time make it function as an effective and efficient council. I would like to thank all the members of the Task and Finish Group for their input. As a cross-party, cross-council group, it has been my pleasure to work with them and benefit from their experience, their views, and the different ways in which our councils operate. I believe this joint approach has enabled us to produce a document that embraces openness and transparency and may go some way to rebuilding the trust in the Council of Northamptonshire. There will be a Task and Finish Group that takes this constitution as a starting point for developing the constitution for the West Northamptonshire Unitary Council next year. To those involved in that group, I wish you well. I hope you are able to build on what has been produced today. Now, the constitution presented this evening is divided into 6 parts. The first part sets out what the Shadow Council is and how it works. Part 2 sets out the formal articles of the Constitution, including the rights and responsibilities of members and the public. The various committees of the Shadow Council, that is the executive, overview and scrutiny, senior appointments and standing. The third part outlines the responsibilities of the various bodies and individuals. Part 4 contains the procedural rules for the council. The 5th part is the Code of Conduct, designed to ensure that councillors adhere to the highest ethical standards, and also a protocol for member-officer relations. And the final part covers the Shadow Council's allowances. Article 10 of the 2020 order provides that the Shadow Council has to prepare and adopt a scheme for the payment of allowances to its members. It was agreed by the working party that it is vital that all our residents have easy access to see councillors' attendance records, even at the meetings of the Shadow Council and the other bodies that are being set up. The question of area committees and youth councils was considered, and we had a long debate about the advantages and disadvantages. It was felt it was not appropriate at this stage to include any recommendation, as the Shadow Authority needed to take decisions on how it wished to deliver services prior to these ideas being progressed. Lastly, I would just like to express many thanks to all the officers who have been involved in developing this constitution, drafting it, redrafting it yet again. It has involved a huge amount of detailed work to get to the stage that we're at. I am therefore happy to propose the recommendations in the report 2A to 2F. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Peter, for your succinct presentation there. I now ask Councillor Phil Larriott to second the proposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you, Phil.
I'm pleased to second the recommendations as proposed by Councillor Rawlinson, and I reserve my right to speak, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Larriott. I now got a list of speakers. At the moment, we've got 8. Councillor Jane Birch.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you, Jane.
It was a great privilege for me to be part of this task and finish group working on the draft constitution, and I regret, due to proportionality in the makeup of these groups, I will not be able to continue, and I wish the group well. In my view, we reached a consensus on many matters: the importance of democratic accountability, the checks and balances needed for transparency and public access to meetings, papers and reports, equal opportunities for all elected members to have access to agendas, minutes and reports, and meetings held at times which take into account working patterns and childcare responsibilities of our members. Peter's already mentioned the acknowledgement of the importance of the role of young people, which they have to play in the life of this new authority. The establishment of a youth council run by young people, for young people, and with officer support for youth-led agendas. We need to keep our young people engaged and active in our communities, and I hope to see this embedded in the final constitution. And just to echo the previous speaker, this new authority will need to be fully inclusive and represent all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Positive contribution, very, very kind. Next speaker is Councillor Adam Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And as somebody who's known you very well over the past few years and who's benefited greatly from your experience, I wish to give you my hearty congratulations on your position. I'd really like to echo the words of Councillor Rawlinson and Councillor Birch, and I'd very much like to thank Councillor Rawlinson and his team for fantastic work that they've put in to take us to this point. I will be chairing the governance task and finish group of the Shadow Authority, and I believe that the work in front of us gives us a fantastic opportunity to make West Northamptonshire Council a truly democratic, truly transparent authority that is both accountable to the people that it represents and also truly functional for the members who sit upon it. And I'd just like to emphasise to all of the members on this meeting today that as chair of the governance task and finish group, I'm more than happy and actually really truly keen to listen to your views on where the constitution should go to make sure that you have the best opportunity, should you be elected in May, to do your best as the councillor for the people of West Northamptonshire. The constitution is something that the public at large don't really focus on an awful lot, and rightly so. Their attention is on the policy issues and the services that they rely upon. But as councillors, we know that the constitution is the bedrock that we rely upon in order to conduct our business. And so I would just like to give my promise to all the members here today that my door is open to listen to all of your suggestions about how best we proceed, and certainly issues such as the Youth Council and all of the other issues raised by Councillor Birch will be of great interest to me, and I'd be more than happy to discuss those matters with her at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Adam. Inspirational words there, thank you. And can we now move on to our next speaker, Zoe Smith?
Thank you, Chair. MBC, like many other councils, recently declared a climate emergency, and we've since then committed to making sure that the climate emergency is at the heart of everything we do and at the heart of the MBC constitution. I think it's really important going forward that this is at the heart of everything, not only the constitution of the West Northampton Authority, but also every committee and every decision it makes needs to have the climate emergency in mind. when we do that, if we're making measures such as making meetings paperless, we've also got to then make sure that that's equal for all councillors and that they've got the tools for the job, so that people without access to technology can be assisted to do that. So we need to think of the climate emergency and equality in everything that we do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ken Ritchie. Ken, I can't hear you.
My apologies, Chair.
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologise. Yeah. I too was a member of the task group that drafted this constitution. And I've got to say that I was very pleasantly surprised by both the nature, the quality of the discussion. And I think that the credit for that really has got to go to Councillor Rawlinson for the way that he actually led the group. And I was grateful for that. I'm therefore, of course, happy to support the adoption of the draft. But there is an issue that causes me concern, and that is the difficulty that the group found in making recommendations on how we achieve localism with a council covering an area with over 300,000 residents. When the unitary structure was imposed on us, there were members across all parties who were concerned of what the implications would be for their areas, of having decisions taken, some would say it centrally, and of course the centre was by many assumed to be Northampton, rightly or wrongly. Many of us made commitments to our constituents that we would do everything we could to achieve a structure which preserved local decision-making as far as that was possible. Section 3 of the notes before us refer to area committees. Now, area committees may or may not be the best way of ensuring that local decisions are taken locally. I think they're probably not the best way, but if they're not, we still need to find another solution to the problem. I'm aware that resolving this may not be easy. We've got town councils and parish councils, and their roles must be respected. The town councils, and I expect a small number of parish councils, have got the capacity to take on some of the responsibilities that presently lie with our existing councils, but very many, particularly parish councils, don't. Devising a scheme that offers some uniformity in which decisions are delegated and which are not is therefore going to be challenging. I've got particular concerns about how we deal with planning issues and applications, and that's something that has got to be in place, I would guess, before vesting day. I'd be concerned that if decisions that relate to Daventry Town, without implications beyond the town.
You're half a minute, Councillor Ritchie. Half a minute to go, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'd be concerned, so planning. Voluntary organisations, another issue. I just feel that devising a satisfactory structure for local decision-making is going to require thought, research and consultation, but we've only got 10 months to go, and that's not long. So in voting for this constitution, I therefore strongly urge the council to give this matter due priority and come up with an innovative way so that we can not just strengthen local government, but we don't weaken local democracy in doing so.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. I just want to point out to all members that Peter Rawlinson will do a response to this at the end of all the speakers. Thank you much indeed for that. Councillor Dabbs.
Right, sorry about that. I just had to unmute myself.
I see you now. That's okay. That's good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm echoing some of the comments that have been passed before on climate change. What I thought is that very specifically on page 37, Article 12, item 5, I don't think we need to look at it now. Principles of decision making. I think the consideration of climate change should be in there. So that's where it should be considered. My main point, though, relates to the order of business and the flexibility that is allowed to change the order of business. I think the Chair, Councillor Miller, would remember, and all the others at DDC would remember, a particular issue when we were overwhelmed with public interest in a particular item of the council. and the running order of the evening was not actually changed. So the poor people had to sit around for quite some time before we got to the point of interest. And after that, of course, they all left. So my proposal would be, and there's various sections where it's mentioned, and I know that the chair can take various powers and adopt motions to move other motions, but I'm looking again at page 96. I think there should be a clear direction that if there is a big public interest in certain items on an agenda, that we should be encouraged, or the chair should be encouraged, to move the agenda items around so that members of the public aren't left hanging around listening to endless debates about things that they're probably not interested in, although probably very worthy to fellow councillors, and to amend the agenda so that the public get to hear their interested item earlier on. That's all from me. That's just a recommendation I would have, and it would be useful to have that considered. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Dobson and Councillor Rawlinson will come back at the end. Thank you much indeed for that. Next speaker is Councillor Lauren Harrington-Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Lauren Harrington-Carter from Daventry District Council is regarding the Youth Council. As it says on page number 5 of the documents, the West Northampton Joint Committee have said that there was further time for work to be done on this. Young people are both key in national and local politics, as they are the next generation. As a member of Daventry District Council's Scrutiny and Improvement Committee, my project is to look into and potentially set up a youth council. Having looking at neighbouring councils such as Warwickshire County Council, which have set up a well-established youth council, which works very well with councillors and helps them engage with the younger population of Warwickshire, which is key. I understand that there are more pressing matters, and this shadow council is new, and so some things may take a while to set up. So this may be something that requires to be looked at a later date, but it would be a shame to lose all the work I personally and the work that other people have put into the youth council. I don't want it to fall off the radar, as across West Northants we have so many young people, and we as a council should give them the opportunity to help and improve their area. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Lauren. Again, inspirational. Thank you for that. We now have Councillor Daniel Stone.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was expecting to be called under item 2, to be perfectly honest with you. So my understanding now is that, as well as giving our names in to Democratic Services, we also need to press the blue hand. Is that right?
It's called under item 2.
This is item, yeah, item 2. You were called for that, Daniel, yeah.
No, I wasn't called for it. And I was also asked for apologies, and I wasn't able to give them. So Arthur McCutcheon has given his apologies. I wanted to make 4 points, if that's okay with you. And I wanted to explain to you, as the chair, why the Labour group abstained in its vote. And we abstained in our vote because we feel that we're living in quite extraordinary times. And as councillors sitting here, we've been dictated to by the government. So we don't have a mandate for what we're doing. It seems to us as a group that calls for different ways of working. So we're disappointed we weren't consulted or involved in the discussion about who should be chair or vice chair. And we haven't really been included as much as we think we ought to be in a kind of collegiate way of looking at the business of the Shadow Council. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other one is, I'm a Northampton councillor. Northampton has got 230,000 people in it. We're a really big authority, but we don't have the representation on the working groups or on the committees or anywhere suggested in the Shadow Council that signifies that huge responsibility. And I think I would like to ask you to have another look at that. I'm also very curious about, I think the draft constitution as we've got in front of us is a really good one. I can see the amount of work that's gone into it. And I really appreciate that. And one of the bits of work that's gone into that is it is the very first, historically speaking, gender neutral constitution. I think that is a huge leap forward. I'm very pleased about that. And I think it would be really great if all the members respected that. And when we are talking about the chair, we're talking about the chair, not the chairman, it's the chair. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanley. I just want to say from my point of view, I'm a neutral chair and I will chair matters very fairly. Clearly, the points you raise here, the group leaders are here tonight, so hopefully they pick up the points you raised and that can be discussed for your group leader meetings maybe. I think that's the best way to handle that one. Thank you. Councillor Zoe Smith.
She's already spoken. She's already spoken.
Already spoken, my apologies. Councillor Sally Beardsworth, thank you. Sorry, Sally.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. Thank you. Well done, Chris, for chairmanship. I know you. I've known you for a long time, and I trust you will be as conscientious as you've always been, and give everybody a fair crack. The reason I'm speaking on this is I was on the working party of the governance, and they did exceptionally well with under the chairmanship of Councillor Rawlings. And also I congratulated on the work he did, but also how the consensus was there. It was all three parties were there, and there was no arguments. Everybody came to the same view, and that is why I'm sad in some respects that the opposition don't seem to be included much in any of the working committees. I know it's proportional, but sometimes some fresh ideas. I mean, I've been a councillor for 30 years now, and I've seen a lot what the mistakes have been made, where we've gone wrong, but we can learn from, and yet none of my expertise is going to be used on any of committees. And I just find that sad. You know, you've got up to 8, 9 Conservatives, 4 Labour and 1 Liberal Democrat. You know, you've got to stop this proportional thing and actually go to people who actually have got experience, not just being led. I know you're the majority party, but unfortunately, I just feel that it isn't a fair crack, and you're not using the expertise that's out there. But I hope you'll review this and look at it differently. But it was a very good piece of work we put together, all together, working together, and that's what I want to see us doing now.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you much indeed for that. I've got Phil Larratt wants to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I also, as a member of the Task and Finish group that produced this constitution, thank Peter Rawlinson for the way in which he chaired the working group. It was a very effective working group, and as other members have said, it was consensus ruled the day. And I think it's fair to say that everybody had their say and everything was agreed mainly by consensus. So I support everything that's been said in that respect. I think, Chair, a lot of people have talked about openness and transparency. That is what we set out to achieve under Peter's chairmanship. And I think we have agreed that. I think we all realise where we are and how we got here, and we must ensure that going forward, we go forward in an atmosphere of openness and transparency. And I think that as somebody who's going to be on the new working group along with Adam, I think I shall certainly be taking forward the need for openness and transparency. I think there's a lot of interesting points have been made tonight, particularly about climate change, running order, youth council, etc. And I think that those are issues that we need to pick up at our first meeting of the new working group and decide how best to take those forward. I have to say that Sally Beardsworth and I go back a long way, and Sally Beardsworth does have great knowledge and understanding of the Constitution, and I chair the Constitution Working Group on Northampton Borough, and Sally always has a very sensible and thought out contribution to make. So I'm very sorry she's not going to be on the new working group. But Chairman, congratulations to Peter Rawlinson. An excellent job, well done. openness and transparency, and let's pick up on the issues that have been made tonight when we first meet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Phil, for those positive words. Councillor Dennis Meredith.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations on your appointment. I think it is well deserved. You've been in politics a long time. You've got a lot of experience, and I would certainly support you in that role. We've worked together in the past, and I intend to be working with you in the future. What I wanted to say on this is I'm quite upset about the proportional representation. I don't think it's right. I know it comes, it's protocol, and it's put on proportional representation, but I think it's overloaded. I really do. I think if you look at the scrutiny committee, where you see so many Conservatives on that scrutiny, it can't really function as a scrutiny. I know people who will be on there supposed to be independent, but you know, in my experience, I mean, I've done scrutiny for 14, 15 years, and it just can't work like that. And I say to you, Mr. Chairman, you know, we have to look at this proportional representation. We have to get it right. And if we haven't got that right, then everything is going to go out the window. And I fully support what Phil Larratt said about putting Sally Beersworth on this task and finish group. Her experience is greatly needed, and I hope that we can look at that and do that. Thank you, Chris. I can see you're getting a bit finished.
Thank you, Dennis. It's very kind. I mean, these points will be raised with the group leaders, I think. They've got to sort this out between themselves. I've also got Jonathan Harris, Councillor Jonathan Harris, waiting to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Congratulations also on your appointment. We've not known each other that long, but I'm sure you'll do a sterling job, and look forward to your independence as Chair. Mine is a very small point, but I think quite a practical point, and it's referencing page 128, specifically on Code of Conduct. I have raised this today with Democratic Services, and I hope this gets consideration. Specifically, it suggests that the Nolan principles of public life should be borne in mind. I feel strongly that it should be much more than borne in mind, and they should be actually adhered to. We live in interesting and challenging times on many fronts, and therefore I think we should all be prepared to sign up completely to adhere to those principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm now going to ask Peter Rawlinson to respond. You've got 3 minutes, Peter, roughly, if you can. Thank you, actually, Peter.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to first of all thank all the councillors for their comments. And I think, as Councillor Larratt said, there are some really important issues that need to be thrashed out during the period of the Shadow Council, so that they are ready for the new West Northants unitary. Certainly, we do need to engage with younger people, but one of the interesting points there was, when we were discussing it, we're trying to build a single unitary on one hand, but then we would need some local way of getting younger people involved, as we felt that it might be difficult for people at the far end of West Northamptonshire to get into Northampton, for example. So, there are many pros and cons there, and certainly the issue of localism is another one that does need to be discussed further once the council, the Shadow Council, has got underway in its journey. I wish Adam Brown all the best, and hope he finds it as interesting and stimulating as I did when I was working with the group. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Peter. We now move on to, I'm now going to ask for a vote on this this item, and therefore I'm going to hand over to the Democratic Services Manager now to take the vote forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The vote for this item will now be launched. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote.
I'm voting for.
I've done it.
Okay, it's 95, 96 for.
Totally conclusive, very conclusive result there, 98% for, 2% abstained. So that's carried. Thank you much indeed. We now move on to the appointment of the Vice Chair of the Council. Can I now have nominations, please?
Chairman, that's me. Can you hear me?
Councillor Gonzalez, thank you. Mr. Savage.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you, Andre.
I'd like to propose Councillor Pinder Chauhan for the position of Vice Chairman of this new authority. Pinder is a fully committed member of Northamptonshire County Council and highly dedicated representative of her community. I do feel that as an active parish councillor, she's very representative of all the sectors of her community and those of a wider area. And I'm sure that she'll represent fairly and squarely those areas which she's always had passion for. She's a loyal and caring lady with a background of business and enterprise, and will strengthen the links between the public and government passionately. I therefore propose Pinder to be the Vice Chair of this new authority, the West Northamptonshire Council, and the Shadow Authority for this year 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. Thank you for that. And we now require a seconder. Is that Councillor Shepherd? John.
Thank you, Chairman. Very happy to second Pinder for Vice Chairman. She's been a very effective local member since a relatively recent appointment and would be a good adjunct to your chairmanship.
Thank you, Mr. John. Thank you for that. So seconded. Are there any more nominations? It appears not. Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Pinder Chauhan.
Yes.
Having been duly proposed and seconded to hold the office of Vice Chairman of West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority for the year 2020-21, are you prepared to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am.
You are. Okay, thank you. And Chair to go to the vote now. To the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair, the vote for this item will now be launched. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote.
Why not?
I'm out. Look, quick.
Why are you out?
No, I've fucked it up.
Voting in favour?
Okay.
Okay, that's 69 for, 74, 3 against and 25 abstained.
74 for.
Yeah, we've got 1 in the room.
One in the room. Okay, thank you. Of course. Again, a very conclusive result. Can people see that on their screens at home? Just check, that's fine. So again, a very conclusive outcome there. So congratulations, Pinder, on your
Thank you.
election as my Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I just need to read out this declaration. I, Pinder Chauhan, have been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of the Council for the West Northamptonshire Shadow Council. Hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. I do solemnly declare that I will uphold the highest standards in the performance of functions of my office in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct. I'd just like to add a couple more words in there. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all members that supported me tonight. This is a historic time for the history of this authority, and I'm really honoured to be part of it. I know the opposition will also be happy to see fairer representation in the female form, as we hear in the chamber in so many express so often. And with my professional background and experience, I look forward to using my expertise and being an active link between councillors and the chairman. I look forward to championing community engagement, fair representation, and also the views of the youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Pinder. I've got one speaker who actually wants to come in. That's Councillor Joe Guildford.
Congratulations, Chris and Pinder. Just to let you know, I've had a message from Councillor Liz Griffin that she's waiting in the waiting room and she's yet to be let into the meeting. Could someone let her in?
She will be in the practice session. I will contact her offline.
Contact her offline. She's not here physically then, she's actually just... Thanks for that, Joe. We're trying to sort that one out. Thank you. Right, we now move on to agenda item 7, appointments of interim statutory officers. I'm now going to ask Councillor Ian McCord to move the proposition.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendations as set out in the paper that George Chandler be appointed as interim head of Head Service, Susan Zace be appointed as the interim monitoring officer, Martin Henry be appointed as the interim chief finance officer or section 151 officer. These are the 3 statutory officers required in the structural changes order. No council is properly constituted without each of our 3 wise persons. For those wishing to know, we did follow a proper process for coming to these recommendations. Expressions of interest were called for from amongst those suitably qualified or in post at the existing sovereign councils. Under the supervision of HR, a panel of the 4 leaders of the sovereign councils received some training. We then shortlisted, interviewed and made recommendations. I wish to thank all 3 who are being recommended, as they have to fit this in around their existing workload. And I know, as we've already had a press inquiry, as to the additional remuneration they can expect, sadly, there is none. Chair, all come as highly respected in their home authorities, and I have every confidence we are in safe hands with them, and I move the recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor McCord. I'm now asking for a seconder for this proposition. Is that Councillor Jonathan Nunn?
That's right, yes.
Oh, there you are, Jonathan.
Well,
Look on the screen.
from here.
You speak from here, that's okay.
Yeah. But thank you very much, Chair. My congratulations to both you and your Vice Chair.
Thank you.
One of the great things that's come out of working through this process over recent months, particularly, has been to get to know more of the officers across the county, and we are lucky to have a tremendous range of officers. As Ian said, a good number of them were kind enough to come forward during this process, and different choices were made with high quality people to select. But it is my absolute pleasure to second the proposal that the 3 repeated persons' names become our statutory officers on an interim basis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to invite members who wish to speak on this for up to 3 minutes. Councillor Alan Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman.
We found you, that's good, we can see you.
Well, I'm pleased about that too. As long as you can hear me, I'm usually heard. I chaired the task and finish group that drew up the person specification and job description for these posts. As we've already heard, they were required by the structural changes order, and I'm very pleased that that process has led to a satisfactory outcome and satisfactory appointments. And I wish all the officers, that includes yourself as chairman and the vice chairman and the 3 officers that we're just designating now, my very best wishes for the next year. And I hope that we can work together successfully in preparing for vesting day. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, thank you much indeed, Alan. I know how much work you put into this. That's much appreciated. And I know your experience and your wisdom will be much appreciated as we move forward. Thank you for that. Any other speakers? No? Okay, there's no other speakers. We now move, I can ask Councillor McCord to reply if he wishes to. No, he's happy with that. So I'm going to ask for the vote for you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'm now going to launch the vote. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote.
I'm voting in favour. Three of them watching me here.
So 97 voted, 100 now.
Yeah, 101.
101 have voted for, and there's one abstention and none against. So I think that's a pretty clear endorsement of the appointments. So thank you much indeed. How much that cost you? George. That's okay, that's fine. No, congratulations to all of you, and we wish you well. It's going to be a challenging time. So thank you much indeed, Alan, also Alan Chancellor. So now we're going to move on to item 8, committee proportionality and appointment of members to committees. The list of these councillors appointed to committees has been circulated by email and is also available on the County Council's website. I'm going to ask the Voluntary Officer to introduce the report. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm just going to explain a little around the voting for this particular report before I hand over to the proposer. The report asks the Shadow Authority to note or confirm a number of decisions relating to the structure and governance of the Shadow Authority. Members should note that the Structural Changes Order mandates that the Shadow Authority will adopt a leader and cabinet executive as defined by Part 1A of the Local Government Act 2000. The order also sets out the names of the leader and the deputy leader of the Shadow Authority, although it remains for the Shadow Authority to receive the names of the remaining members of the Shadow Executive and the leaders and deputy leaders of the opposition groups. The report also asks the Shadow to confirm the appointment of seats on committees in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989 relating to political balance, as well as the appointment of chairs and deputy chairs. A list of the members of committees along with the chairs and deputy chairs will have been circulated and is also available on the website. Lastly, I need to remind members that there must be a separate vote in respect of recommendation small Roman 5. This is because the proposal is for all groups to be represented on the Standards Committee. This means we're going outside of the requirements of political balance, and so we require a separate vote from members to agree to this. And if all members don't vote in favour, it will revert back to the political balance arrangement, which will mean that one member is removed from the Standards Committee, and that is the independent member. Thank you.
Thank you much indeed, Susan. Right, we move now to, I'm going to ask Councillor Ian McCall to move the proposition.
Chair, High Sheriff, councillors, I move the recommendation as laid out. We've had a couple of people speak earlier to say how they would like to do it, and I'll take a few minutes and try and outline some of my thoughts. Chair, on the 1st of April 2021, 303 days from now, local government gets a fresh start and a bright future. West Northamptonshire Council will come into being, replacing Daventry District, Northampton Borough, South Northamptonshire and Northamptonshire County Councils. All their responsibilities, duties, assets, powers and functions will transfer to West Northamptonshire Council. If you take off non-working days, that leaves us just 1,712 hours to form our new council. But let's not worry about that. The coronavirus response has shown that what we can accomplish at pace when we all work together. Let's harness that energy and face our challenge which is to split the county council, merge that half with the 3 districts and boroughs, establish a children's trust, implement a post-COVID recovery plan, keep the financial recovery of NCC on track, recruit a chief executive and management team, create a new budget, harmonise council tax, align policies and procedures, and many other matters that we need to consider. And at the same time, we must continue business as usual. The bins must be emptied and care must be provided. When it's done, the 2nd of April is Good Friday. We'll have a holiday for a much deserved rest. But Chair, that list is process, detailed, best left to the project team and their Gantt charts. As councillors, we must lift our eyes to the horizon and explain why we are doing this. Making this change to a West Northamptonshire Unitary Council has one purpose: to give local people and local government a fresh start and a bright future. To see that bright future, Chair, for a moment, imagine it is 2025, 5 years from now. Here is what West Northampton Council should have achieved. Ofsted have rated our children's services outstanding, offering a fresh start and bright futures to all those who've had a difficult beginning in life. Our care systems are transformed and integrated with the NHS and wider health economy. We have put well-being and prevention at the heart of all we do, allowing everyone to live well, stay well, and age well. Our young people have bright futures as educational attainment is rising. Northampton and our other town centres are reaping the rewards of plans put in place in the final days of district and borough councils, giving them a fresh start and a bright future. A new economic growth plan with ambitious housing and employment targets has been adopted. The local economy is growing again, and the damage caused by coronavirus in 2020 fully repaired. Long-awaited road and bypass schemes have been delivered or are substantially underway. Urban and rural communities working as one to preserve what is special, protect the countryside and natural environment, and grow the local economy. Our budgets are balanced and reserves are at healthy levels, giving some financial space to look at new investment opportunities. West Northampton Council is a beacon of good practice others want to aspire to. An employer where our staff feel valued and are proud to work for. And we await the final outcome of our entry in the award category of Council of the Year 2025. That is the prize, and we can realise that with the best talented members and employees all aligned to a common goal. First off, we have a duty to get our act together by showing we can live responsibly within our means. To be a great council, we need a range of effective and trusting partnerships with the NHS, police, fire and other public services. Working in harmony with businesses of all sizes, providing the economic prosperity on which the public services rely, and we are here to support. Partnering with voluntary and community sectors, with parish and town councils on whom the coronavirus response has shown we all truly rely. And most of all, with our own residents, who we are here to serve, providing them with a single service where district and county are joined up and better outcomes result. But I must warn you, colleagues, your best excuse is now gone. It's not me, it's them. Potholes, county matter. Planning, district problem. Now it will be a council matter, and the West Northampton Council has sole responsibility. In your committees, in your working groups, from this day forward, let us work in a spirit of cooperation to resolve the issues we face. Whatever party we belong to, all let's sit on the same side of the table and solve the problem together. We have just one chance and little time to get it right. My friends, as leader of West Northampton's Shadow Authority, I say, come with me, come on that journey, and I promise you it will be worthwhile. Together, let us build a great council with a single mission, local government reborn, revitalised and reinvented, with a fresh start, delivering bright futures to everyone. Chairman, I propose the appointments as set out.
Many thanks indeed, Councillor McCord. I now ask Councillor Jonathan Nunn to second the proposition. Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Chairman. Delighted to, and indeed bearing my full sign up to the ambition of this interim administration as outlined by our council leader. May I also add similarly that in order to achieve our bold ambitions, we need good structures. We need fantastic officers. We have it in place. We need good committees. And we also need to work together in collaboration. So in seeing here committees and groups that seem to be signed up to that, I'm absolutely delighted to send the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jonathan Nunn. Sorry, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Nunn. Okay, so I got 2 people, in fact, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people wishing to speak. The first one is Councillor Adam Brown.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and delighted to hear the enthusiastic words of Councillor McCord setting out a very ambitious plan for the future, one that I heartily endorse. And I think whilst we look over the list of names that will be engaged in committees and as leaders across party political groups, what springs to my mind is the requirement for us all to work, in Daniel Stone's words, collegiately and in the spirit of harmony across party political boundaries. I listened with great interest to Councillor Beersworth's words earlier about her experience and her ambition to give more to the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority than perhaps she's been offered to give thus far. And I hope that whilst some people may be disappointed with the roles that they have or haven't been offered to date, they will take the opportunity to attend committees, to reach out to committee chairs and to do everything they can to deliver the bright future and the fresh start that we as council leaders hope to deliver to the people of West Northamptonshire. This is going to be a team effort. As a shadow authority, I hope that we can look beyond those party political limitations that so often hold us back from working in the best interests of our residents. And I heartily look forward to the first meetings of these committees and to working with leaders and deputies of all political colours.
Thank you, Steve, for those positive words. Councillor Les Marion.
Thank you, Chair. I really don't want to go back over the ground that Councillor Stone, Beersworth and Meredith have actually gone over, but it's the only opportunity I really have to speak on the task and finish working groups, to be quite honest. Very late in the day, we've actually got the terms of reference for those come through, and it's going to be on in the next few days for the new shadow executive to decide and discuss. Just one or two issues to do with that. It does identify within those notes that are going to the executive that there are 11 different groupings, but there are 8 task and finish. So I just wonder if somebody can explain to me why it's got from 11 down to 8 task and finish groups. The other thing is really that because they came late in the day, the terms of reference, is the fact that it didn't give people the opportunity to understand the commitment they need to give. So I just hope in practical terms that they will look at making sure that as we go on, we actually get substitutes for those committees, because there's only, I believe, about 4 people along with the chair working on those. So that is not really a good number. I was on the actual task and finish group looking at the senior officers, to actually look at the way we get that interims through. And that started off with 9 people. On occasions, and I think the chair recognises, last 2 meetings I went to, there's only 3 people attending. So they probably need to look, particularly the chairs of those new groupings, probably need to look at a bit more flexibility and take on board what Councillor Beersworth said. We are trying to work together. We want to get involved in this, but we just need a little bit more flexibility, because you have got people in the opposition parties that can help out. And I think they've probably been looked at differently, because those task and finish groups, unfortunately, have been looked at on proportional representation, and it shouldn't be done that way. It should be looked at, as the task and finish groups have done it till now, on people coming forward who can actually best help. So that's really what I want to say, Chair, and thanks for the time on that.
Thank you, Steve, Councillor Murray. And I'm going to ask Ian McCall at the end of all the speakers to respond on this item. Thank you for that. We now have Councillor Chris Lops.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. The first is that, and again, referring back to openness, I gather that the email and the information containing these lists and the further details
didn't actually come out until 6:30 tonight. So it's been impossible for most of us to be able to look at that and read it before the meeting. So I hope that in future we actually get this information a bit earlier. And the second point I'd like to make is that, I hope that Councillor McCord's reference to April the 2nd next year being Good Friday isn't actually comparing the efforts of the Shadow Authority to those involved in a previous Good Friday agreement, which is somewhat of a thorn in the Brexit process. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Hobbs. I can see a bit of humour there. Councillor Beardsworth. Can you hear us, Sally? We can see you. Can't hear you. Unmute. Yeah.
Unmute, hang on.
We can hear you now, Sally. That's great. No, she's muted. Muted again. You keep muting yourself.
Okay, is that okay now?
We can hear you now. That's fine. Thank you.
Sorry. Can I just say, Chair, that I understand about proportionality, but I always think if I was in charge, I would try and use the best people. Now, I was on the County Council for 16 years alongside you, and in the end, I had to leave because every good suggestion that we put forward was totally ignored. We used to have a rousing speech from the leader of the Conservatives every year, and eventually we realised that held no water. And I couldn't bear to see all the statutory things we were supposed to be doing deteriorating, and children's care, old people's care was getting worse and worse and worse. Now, we did put through motions, but were voted down, and it was a bit like cannon fodder. If the Tory raises its hands, they all follow suit. Why don't you have some independent thought in there as well? I'm talking to Mr. McCall now. You've got to actually deliver this, and you've got to deliver it with the right people. It's not fair that you're excluding people that have seen the Carillion problems, all the other problems that have went with the county council. I've witnessed these things, and I would make sure they never happened again. But unfortunately, I am cut out completely, not even allowed to sit on a taxes and finish group to put my expertise in there. And I'm very, very sad. I wanted to join and make this work, not sit at home and twiddle my thumbs. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Steve Sally. I'm sure Councillor Court will respond to that in his closing remarks. We now move on to Councillor Gonzalez. Great. You're on mute, Andre, you're on mute.
Sally needs to mute.
Oh, Sally's on mute, sorry. Sally, that's it, off Sally. Oh, Sally's on mute, that's right, yeah. Andre, you're on now. Andre? Okay, we'll come back to you in a minute, Andre. Councillor Stone.
Thank you very, very much. Ian's speech reminded me of Taste the Strawberry and Get on the Bus, actually. So I hope it has a better outcome than that. One of the things that is bothering me is that the issues that we are confronting aren't just because we had a failed county council. We've also had issues with the way government has treated Northamptonshire. We've just had the COVID, well, we're in the middle of the COVID crisis, and we haven't resolved any of the issues for the unitary to do with historic debt, budget gaps, and now we're going to be looking at a situation where the COVID crisis has caused even more economic problems. Economists are telling us we're heading not just for a recession, but for a depression. We have got 3 Conservative MPs, and I would really like to know what their commitment to West Northants is going to be, and how they're going to help us make sure that we start with a stable economic base and that we have a sustainable position to go forward. So, passion, commitment, vision is important, but it's not going to carry us far enough unless we have a very secure economic base. I want to echo what Councillor Marriott said and what Councillor Beardsworth have said. We have been looking at dire children's services for nearly 8 years. Nearly 8 years. How shameful is that? We have got councillors on the county council who will now be on the West Northants Council who are really expert in children's services. We have never ever had our ideas engaged with or been welcome to make a contribution. Don't do that. Don't waste the talent that you've got around the table. And I'm saying that because I'm one of those councillors with that kind of expertise. There are lots of councillors with a lot of expertise. Use them, please use them.
Thank you, Danielle. You've got to come try Andre again now. Andre, can you hear us? Andre Gonzalez.
He's left the meeting.
Left the meeting, okay, thank you. Right, so I'm going to now ask Councillor McCall to respond to those comments.
Thank you, Chair. Let me try and take some of these points as they come. There seems to be some angst around the representations in the task and finish groups. But these are 5-member task and finish groups, and they are proportionally balanced, and there are 4 Conservatives and 1 that's not. Whilst the chapter was going on, I did political balance calculation. 71% of the shadow authority is Conservative, the 29% isn't. But actually, when you look at the scrutiny committee that was mentioned, it splits 2/3 to 1/3. So there's a greater proportion of Conservatives, and one of the members mentioned something about the scrutiny committee. Task and finish groups need to work. There are a number of things that have to do, and to Councillor Beardsworth, I've not said what any opposition councillor should sit on. All I've said is there is a place and allocate them amongst yourselves. So if there's something that you desperately want to sit on, take it up within your own group, take it up within the Liberal and Independent group and say you want to sit on it, make your case and make it to them. It's not for me. I will welcome you to any group. I've not said where people wish to do and wish to sort out. Councillor Stone, I would have a plea. You've heard what I said, and I want to see this work. But please stop talking down the institute. Every time I hear you speak, you talk is down, and then you complain there is very little by way of people taking an interest. If we're going to make this work, I will work with you, but let's all work with a common goal and not a long list of things that need to be sorted out. I've made those head on when I spoke earlier. So let's work together instead of talking down our chances of this being a success. And to any councillor who says we put things on the agenda time and time again and it didn't happen, can you just read the constitution that we've just adopted? For within that, there is a right for a call for action that you have. It's written in there. So use those things if you think you're not being heard. Because and if that wasn't the case in other constitutions that I'm not aware of every page of, then you will at least see that those lessons that you've asked for have been noted and are being learned. So, Chairman, to sum up, I think we've got political balance as we need. We're actually saying also in the Standards Committee that everybody should be there. We need to be thinking also about the political balance. There's not proportional representation. They are different things. One is a voting system, and the other is the balance that we have to, which is a legal requirement that we have to ensure that all parties are represented according to their strength at the election that was last taken. And that's what we've managed to do, and that's what every council everywhere manages to do. So if you've got your expertise, please bring it forward. And I look forward to working with everyone. And as I said, I move to recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor McCall. Bang on time there, well done. I'm now going to advise members that 2 votes will be required. One for the recommendations 1 to 4 and 6, and a separate vote for recommendation 5. This is because, as mentioned earlier, the proposal in relation to the Standards Committee requires a separate vote with no member voting against. So in respect of proposals 1 to 4, and 6, I hand over now to Paul to actually conduct the vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm going to launch the first vote for recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote.
Okay, thank you. Well, very conclusive outcome there. 92% voting yes, 2% voting no, and 6% abstaining. So that's actually adopted. Those recommendations are adopted. We now move on to item 5, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. This is the second vote on recommendation 5, and as advised by the Chair, in order for this recommendation to take effect, the proposal must be adopted with no members voting against. I'm going to launch the vote now. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote.
Who's for and against?
I don't know.
That's fine. Can I just say something at the end of this, Chairman?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so 97 for, 2 against and 2 abstentions.
So 2 people against. Councillor McCord.
Thank you, Chairman. It was rather disappointing that 2 people have voted against after having put out the plea that we want to have more representation. When there was more representation offered, even some people can't manage to stomach that. I'm a little disappointed. But unfortunately for the independent who was recommended on the Standards Committee, that place will have to fall away.
Thank you, Councillor McCord. Yeah, I think it's always disappointing when that happens, but there we are. That's democracy for you. So, okay, so thank you for that. So that's been decided. We now move on to item 9 now, appointments to the Independent Remuneration Panel, Members Allowances Scheme. And this report advises the Shadow Authority on the preparatory work undertaken by the West Northamptonshire Joint Committee and its Independent Remuneration Panel, Task and Finish Group. If the recommendations are adopted, the panel will produce a report regarding allowances for both the Shadow Authority and the Unitary Authority that will follow. I should remind members that the adoption of a scheme of allowances is a requirement of the Structural Change Order. So I'm now going to ask Councillor Suresh Patel to move the proposition.
Mr. Chair, I also like to add my congratulations to you and Pindo on your appointment. I'm pleased to move this report as outlined in the papers here. The Task and Finish group was set up from 4 existing authorities from across all political members. We have discussed this at the length, and this was approved on the 14th of May 2019 at the West Northern Joint Committee. There are 5 recommendations here on item 2.1225, and I propose that we accept this recommendation. And I also would like to take this opportunity and thank all the members on that panel and also all the officers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Suresh. I'm now going to ask Councillor Mike Warren to second the proposition.
Thank you, Chair.
You're Mike, yes. No, you just muted yourself.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Firstly, Chris, I'd like to thank you for, or congratulate you on your appointment as chair. And I would very much like to second this this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, Mike. That's very kind of you. That's sorted. That's pretty quick. Well, I've got three people want to speak on this, as I know at the moment. First of all, Councillor Emma Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment, and congratulations to Pindo as well.
Thank you, Emma.
I start to speak on this as we intend to vote against this item. We've got a proposal before us that seeks to follow a programme to provide a remuneration to a shadow authority. It's a proposal which sets up an IRP made up of 3 men and 1 woman. No localised community representation, no trade union representation, and no members from minority backgrounds. I argued previously for full representation for this decision making. At a time where people are losing their jobs, find their livelihoods in turmoil, and the country learns to live, work, love, homeschool and survive all in one room, the very fact that we even have this as an agenda item really troubles me. I appreciate the content of the structural changes order and the details in section 10 therein, but to even allow the possibility that a councillor in receipt of a basic allowance on their current authority may already receive or be able to choose the level of remuneration they receive once the IRP has been set up is unacceptable. Our residents have not had a vote to elect us for some time. Democracy has been taken away from them for far too long. Now is not the time to be considering any additional remuneration for councillors who are already sitting on a body where they receive this. The special responsibilities allowance is far too vague, and by rejecting any proposals for any type of remuneration for the Shadow Authority, we send a clear message that we intend to start as we mean to go on, and we intend to put our residents above the pockets of our members. No new mandate should mean no new panel. I question why we're even trying to find time to remunerate at this stage. We're all already supported by allowances. Those who are members of the IRP, it's suggested will receive an average of their allowances that they currently receive payable. Who's going to pay for that? Where does that come from? Is that in addition to the allowances they now receive? Isn't this duty a civic one, which should be without financial motivation? There is no detail on how any of it's going to be paid for. And Councillor McCord said earlier on, we're here to serve. And I would call at this stage a vote against that proposal so that this item can show just how committed we are to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for that. Councillor Adam Brown.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The issue of politicians' pay is always a thorny one, but it wasn't clear at times whether Councillor Roberts was referring to the pay of the members of the Independent Remuneration Panel or the pay of members of the Shadow Authority, which is obviously ourselves. Now, if you go through the structural change order, it makes it very clear that we are under an obligation to put forward a scheme of member allowances. Now, if you look at other authorities who've gone through a similar process, they've often set their members' allowances for the Shadow Authority at zero. That may well be the outcome of the Independent Remuneration Panel. However, I believe very strongly that these matters should always be independent of politics, which is why we have the IRPs. But furthermore, the structural changes order is also very, very clear that any member on the Shadow Authority cannot draw an allowance both on the Shadow and as a member of the Sovereign Council. So there is a protection for the public purse in that regard. No member of this Shadow Authority will be drawing two basic allowances or two special responsibility allowances. And personally, I hope that the Independent Remuneration Panel, although they will come to their own conclusions, will come back to us with a zero scheme of members' allowances for the Shadow Authority. Personally, I'm more than happy to undertake this extra work without any further money being offered to me. And I think that would be the same for all members of the Shadow Authority, regardless of their political persuasions. But as I say, we are under an obligation due to the nature of the structural changes order to put together a scheme of members' allowances. So this is a non-negotiable in many senses, because the law says that we have to do this. And so I would hope that members will trust in the members of the IRP, let them do their work, and then we can quibble about the details of what they come back with when they have done their work.
Thanks, Steve Adam. Thank you for that. And Councillor Angela Roy.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your appointment and Pinder.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Just to echo some of the points that Councillor Roberts made, now is not the time to be talking about this. And also, in addition to this, the Labour Group has strong objections to the composition of the IRO. As Councillor Roberts says, there's no trade union representation, there is no community representation, and clearly we would think that there is a need for those defining the remuneration of local councillors, be representative of our community. We are at a crisis within our community with high levels of anxiety, more than doubled when the economy went into hibernation at the end of March. More than half of the adult population, 25 million people, said that they're worried about the health and security of their job and not having enough money to get by. This is the context in which we're making this decision. I hear what Councillor Brown says in terms of the remuneration, but clearly this sends out the wrong message to the public. Clearly this sends out a message to the public that at a point in time when people are worried about their jobs, unemployed people have suicidal thoughts, that actually councillors are still discussing their own pay. I second Councillor Roberts' motion.
Thank you, Mr. Angela. Thank you for that. Councillor Brian Martin.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Hey, Brian, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Although I agree with almost everything Councillor Roy and Councillor Roberts said, my understanding is the structural changes order has told us we've got to do this. The structural changes orders have told us we have to do lots of things I totally disagree with. I shan't be voting for it, but there is actually very little point. The councillors trying to make it political. If it's political, it's the government that's told us we must do this. I hope that the panels will say, given the length of time, 8 or 9 months, there is no need for any extra remuneration to councillors. And I hope if they do make a suggestion that the shadow council will say, no, even though you made a recommendation, we don't accept it. And I think as a backbench councillor, if they made an offer, if you like, I would turn it down anyway. But it's not, if there's a political fault, then the fault, as always and often in local government, is with national government. So, yeah, I'll just make that point. We can abstain maybe, but it has to go through, otherwise we're not following the law.
Thank you, Brian, for that. Councillor Chris Loss.
Thank you, Chair. I just really want to echo the comments made by Councillor Brian Markham, but also add in that, yes, it's up to the shadow authority whether or not it accepts the outcome of the report of the independent body, but equally it's up to each member attending these meetings, each member who is elected onto the current districts or counties, to make the personal decision as to whether or not they do take any allowance. And I know that there are members in this meeting who, although they're entitled to allowances, have never claimed them. So just because a body comes forward and says this is what should happen, from a personal point of view, it's not something that you have to slavishly follow. The other comment I want to make is that this body has got actually two major functions. Not only are they looking at the remuneration for the shadow authority, they're recommending the remuneration for the new unitary authority when it's set up next May. And I think that is a vital piece of work, and they've got to be supported to do that, so that when it comes to the elections next year, the public are very clear about what levels of allowances the new councillors will be receiving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Councillor Ian McCord.
Thank you, Chairman, and I think it's indicative of the thinking here. I'm going to support what Councillor Loftus has just said. I'm just a little concerned that a few people appear to want to prejudge the outcome. And the panel is for to recommend any allowances for the shadow council, but it is also, and more importantly, as Chris has just said, to establish what the level of allowances will be for West Northamptonshire Council itself going forward from the 1st of April, or more likely from post-election. And if you throw out the proposal tonight, which I urge you not to do, then that would mean the council would not have any allowances. So this argument that, well, we already get allowances, it wouldn't actually follow through. So maybe a little bit of wider thinking before you just rush to make some points. And I take on board how it is. I will be surprised if the panel recommend anything for the shadow. But of course, all of us have the opportunity to speak to those members and give them our views, and I'm sure they'll come to it. And also, can I just say, the independent remuneration panel is exactly that, independent of all of us. So let's not prejudge the outcome and let the process run. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I'm going to now invite Councillor Suresh to reply as he put forward the proposal.
Thank you, Chair. All the comments have been noted. I don't think I can add any more to that. I think we have to trust the IRP, and Councillor Brown and McCord have summed it up very well. So I'm pleased to move the report.
Thank you, Suresh. And I'm going to ask Paul Hanson to invite us for the vote. Paul, to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm now going to launch the vote for this item. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote.
I'm in favour. But whatever they do, the people who are voting against will then refuse any allowances that they're going to get. Yeah, you should have that recorded.
Okay, so that's 84, 20 against, 2 abstentions.
84, 20 against and 2 abstentions. Thank you, Mr. Deed. So fairly conclusive. And that's it. That's done. Thank you, Mr. Deed. The motion is carried then. Thank you. Now we've got the adoption of the calendar of meetings, item 10. The Shadow Authority is now asked to formally approve the programme of meetings, which has been circulating, which you sure also had a copy of. And members will note that the Senior Appointments Committee and the Standards Committee will meet as and when needed. And so their meeting dates are not recorded here. Similar arrangements will be in place for the task and finish groups that have been established. I'm now going to ask the Monitoring Officer to introduce the report. Or over to you, sir. No, sorry, Susie, my apologies. Just go to the proposal. Oh, just go to the proposal. Okay, right. Sorry, my apologies. The proposal then. Councillor McCord.
Am I proposing? Okay. Thank you, Chairman. I move the recommendations as set out for the calendar of meetings.
Thank you. Jonathan Rudd, you can second it?
Happy to second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Got one speaker at the moment, Councillor Alan Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that because I am shielded until the middle of September, I may not be able to attend any of the meetings.
Noted, Alan, the most important thing is your health. So I know you always put emails out. So I know you're around. We know you're around, sir. So I wish you all the best, sir. Thank you. Are we happy to accept that proposal? Can we vote?
Thank you, Chair. I'm now going to launch the vote. Members will have 20 seconds to cast their vote. That's 98 for, no abstention.
98 for, no abstentions. That's the best vote of the night so far. So that's carried. Thank you. Right, so that concludes the business tonight. I just want to thank all members for their attendance and say I declare the meeting closed.
Stephen Dowse.
Oh, sorry, Stephen Dowse. My apologies, Stephen. I didn't see that. My apologies. Stephen, you want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. I just noticed on those last two votes that the numbers that you gave out or that was given out by the other speaker weren't quite what those numbers were that we saw on the screen. What's the difference for that?
I believe the numbers are a percentage, aren't they? Not a.
There's an extra member in the room actually that votes. That's what the difference is. To spot Stephen, that's what it is.
Ian McCord's vote.
Okay. So I thank the members for their attendance and say I thank you actually for a very productive meeting tonight. We had 118 members on at the peak, 118, 119 members on, so that seems to work quite well tonight. And I just want to say the meeting is now closed. I wish you all a good weekend ahead, or weekend actually. Okay, thank you much indeed. All the best. Take care.